Region 6 AAA play continues and Region 7 AA play gets started. Matt Davis and I will be breaking down all the key information you need to know starting right now on Gridiron Central.
Georgia Northwestern Technical College wants to help put you to work. Our programs in business, health, industrial, and public service will train you for the jobs available today. GNTC offers schedules in day, evening, and online classes at 5 campus locations with financial aid options too. You are sure to find a career path that works for you with our variety of degrees, diplomas, and certificates available. Visit us in person or on the web at gntc.edu. Georgia Northwestern Technical College, your career begins here.
Welcome to the show. As always, joining me, my tag team partner, Matt Davis from 95.7 The Ridge. You know, we've got a very interesting week of football. Region 7 AA play finally opens up. We have 2 or 3 big games to talk about there. Region 6 AAA play continues. A couple of big games in that region as well. Matt, you and I both kind of struggled last week in our picks. I think I was 8-8 in the newspaper. You were either 9-7 or 8-8 as well. What makes this year so difficult, at least for you and I, to pick?
I don't know, man. I must have fallen and hit my head or something because I have totally whiffed it not only this week, but last week was pretty atrocious as well. And I had a head full of steam coming into the year because the first week we both went perfect and had a couple of good weeks. And I thought, well, just picking up where we left off there. But things have taken a turn for the worse, so I got to figure some way to get back into this. But I think there are a couple of things that are at play. I think that even at this point, you know, we still don't know a lot about some of these teams.
Yes.
And one of the reasons for that is in the non-region schedule, we're seeing a lot of teams play different teams that we haven't seen them play over the last couple of years. There's a lot of different situations there, and I know that a lot of our area teams, a couple of them in particular, have suffered from attrition in pretty decent ways, and so we're still trying to figure out new personnel and those kind of things. And it's just been difficult, but I'm hoping to get back on track this week.
Gotcha, yes. He and I both started 7-0, I believe, the first week in the newspaper picks. I had people tell me, oh, great job, great job. And I told them right then, said, pat me on the back now because later in the season, you'll be, what are you thinking? And we are at that what are you thinking stage. Of course, Darlington fans will point out that I picked them to lose last week, missed that one.
I picked the same way. And the thing is, I'll be honest, man, if I had to pick it again today, I might pick it the same way.
If I had to pick it again today, knowing that Darlington was going to win, I would pick Darlington. I'm just saying that. Just putting that out there. Anyway.
Rewinding the clock.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, exactly. All righty. Well, we've talked about how we did last week. Let's pick some games this week. Hopefully our picks will be better. We start off with what I think is the biggest game in Region 7 AA this week. Model travels to scenic Trenton, Georgia, up in the valley between Sand Mountain and Lookout Mountain there to take on Dade County, the Region 7 AA opener for both teams. Model ranked number 10th in this week's GSWA Sports Writers football poll, 4-0, one of only like 6 undefeated teams in Class AA. Dade County has 3 losses, I believe. I believe they're 1-3, either 1-2 or 1-3 coming into this game. Yep. Very interesting game. Of course, Matt, you were at this game last year where Dade's defense shut down Model's offense. Can Model turn the tables on the Wolverines this year?
Well, they better hope so because obviously this week they enter region play, and this is a really important game. Like you mentioned, Dade County beat them 13-3 over at Dade County last year, the last week of the season, the regular season, and it was an important game because at that point, if Model would have won that game, they would have had a home playoff game. Instead, they settled for the number 3 seed and played on the road in the playoffs for the second year in a row. So this game, to me, it's the first game of the region play. There's implications to the game. Even though Dade County has struggled, one of the things I'll point out is preseason, just about every coach I talked to from our area teams in 7AA, when I asked them about teams that they're really looking to be successful in the region this year, all of them mentioned Dade County. And so don't let the fact that they've only won one game fool you into thinking they won't be competitive in this region this year. I think they will. I think they're just kind of having a hard time getting things going. Model, on the other hand, they've played extremely well. Their defense has been impressive. At times, their offense has looked really solid. They got a good running game. We haven't seen them mix in as much passing so far as maybe we expected going in, and there's a reason for that. They haven't had to.
Yeah.
But I think when the time comes, they'll do that a bit more and find a little bit more balance in terms of the run and the pass. I still don't think we've seen Model up to their potential.
Not yet.
I think they're going to win this game. I think it could be close. It's tough playing this game on the road, as we found out last year for Model, because I felt like Model was a more well-rounded team last year. But I know, you've got to know Model's had this game circled. You know, again, it's a region game, but also they got a bad taste in their mouth from what happened last year. I think they're going to take it out on Dade County. I think Model wins and go 5-0.
Definitely a revenge factor. There are two keys in this game. Straight up, Dade County cannot pass the ball. They can't pass the ball. Stack 11 guys in the box. Model's defense is very good. If they shut Dade's running game down, Dade is in trouble. Flip side of the coin, Model needs to score at least 21 points. I've said all year long, if they can get to that 21, 24-point plateau, they are going to be very difficult to beat no matter who they are playing. This is the way I look at it. Model is going to shut down, maybe not completely shut down Dade's running game. They're going to hamper it enough. The offense is going to score enough points. Model starts region play 1-0, moves to 5-0 on the season, setting up a very, very important game the next week against Darlington. Of course, we'll talk about that next week. I say Model's going to win. Moving on, Pepperell at Coosa, the annual Shrine game. Both teams have one win coming into this game. Matt, what are your opinions on it?
We'll see. You know, despite Coosa coming in 1-2, they've been building up steam the last couple of weeks. They finally picked up a win in their last game before the bye week. They've had a week to rest and get everybody ready for this game. Pepperell, they've also seemed to pick up a little bit of steam as they've gone on, and they picked up a win against Chattooga last week and scored pretty good amount of points in that game, had some good offense. And I think that's one of the things that people have been most concerned about Pepperell is their lack of ability to get out there and score points in games. So I think this could be an interesting game. You know, Pepperell ended up winning this game last year, and it was a really important game at that point because they were still in Region 7AA. And when you look back at the season, that was one of the games that kept Coosa out of the playoffs and put Pepperell in. And you got to remember, last year Coosa was 6-4, had a really pretty good season. Pepperell went, I think, 4-6 or 4-7.
4-7 at the end of the year.
Yeah, 4-7 after their playoff loss that they took. And so, you know, when I look back at that game, there were a lot of implications. This year, not so much because it's a non-region matchup. Yeah. But I will say this, both teams in this game are playing for pride. They still are obviously in the same county, and for that, it's an important game. But I think Coosa's a better team this year, and I think they're going to win.
You know, I'm going to agree with you on that. And first off about Pepperell, Pepperell finally got that offense clicking right at the end of the first half against Chattooga last week. Chattooga took a 7-0 lead. I think there was about 2 minutes left in the game. Pepperell went right down the field and scored, and that changed everything for the Dragons. They got the ball to start the second half, went down and scored. You know, Chattooga had a scoring opportunity after I think Pepperell was up 20-7. Pepperell got an interception deep in their own territory, stopping Chattooga, and Pepperell's offense finally got going. Here's the thing here, Pepperell runs the ball a lot. We know that. Coosa knows what Pepperell's going to do. Coosa can pass, but they run the ball a lot too. Look, I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a tight game. Although I think Coosa has played a little bit better to this point of the season, I'm going to go with the Eagles in this game. But again, it would not surprise me if either team wins. I think it will be close. One last game before we go to commercial break. It is another Region 7AA game, and honestly, this has been a Region 6A game for the last 7 or 8 years, both Gordon Lee and Darlington moving up to 7AA this year. Gordon Lee is playing at Chris Hunter Stadium. Matt, can the Trojans pull an upset over the Tigers?
You know, I really don't think so. Gordon Lee has really struggled this year, and Darlington is one of those teams, they don't give up. They do what they've got to do to scratch and claw and keep themselves in the games, and when you do that, like we saw last week against Bowden, you know, if you get yourself in a situation where you're close enough and the ball bounces your way, or a particular call happens, or, you know, something on special teams happens, or whatever the case may be, if you keep yourself close enough, then you put yourself in position to take advantage of good situations. And that's exactly what we see Darlington do. And, of course, going into the year, we talked about how much of a small roster they had, but we felt like that the coaches would get the most out of the players they've had. Well, I think they've exceeded even, people that didn't doubt them's expectations,
Yes.
And so last week I mentioned that I picked Bowden, but I also said I wouldn't be surprised if Darlington found a way to win the game. Guess what they did? They found a way to win the game. And so, but that doesn't even necessarily apply to this game. I know that in the last game that Gordon Lee played, they got shut out 33-0 by Christian Heritage. They're just not a very good football team, and I don't think Darlington's going to have much trouble with them at all.
Well, I see this, and look, I'm picking Darlington, but before I say anything else, trap game written all over it. Why? 2 reasons. The big emotional win against Bowden last week. Bowden had a chance to did that, and they completely imploded. They're late in the second half, got a lot of penalties. Darlington took advantage of it, won the game. Darlington did what they had to do to win. The other reason trap game is Darlington. Now, granted, I know the coach is going to say you can't look ahead, you can't look ahead, you can't look ahead. That's great. These are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. They want to play model. There's a lot of smack talk already going on between those two teams thinking about that game. And I'm not saying Darlington's going to lose this game. I think it will be closer at halftime than we expect. That being said, with my record, it could be 35-0 Darlington at halftime. The Tigers are going to win this game, and it's going to set up a very big matchup next week. Of course, we'll talk about that in next week's show. After the commercial break, we have another 5 or 6 games to talk about. Stick around.
Georgia Northwestern Technical College wants to help put you to work. Our programs in business, health, industrial, and public service will train you for the jobs available today. GNTC offers schedules in day, evening, and online classes at 5 campus locations with financial aid options too. You are sure to find a career path that works for you with our variety of degrees, diplomas, and certificates available. Visit us in person or on the web at gntc.edu. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your career begins here.
Welcome back to the show. As always, we'd like to thank Georgia Northwestern Technical College for helping bring Gridiron Central to you for the last 8 years. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I can count, 5 more games to talk about. We start off LFO at Gordon Central. I'm going to pick this one quickly. Neither team has set the world on fire. Gordon Central's in the midst of a 15-game losing streak. I say it goes to 16 games. LFO wins. What about you, Matt?
Don't have a lot to add to this one. The one thing I can say about LFO is they have tasted victory a couple of times this year. It looks like their offense is a little bit better than Gordon Central, so I'm with you on this one, LFO.
I mean, it is at Gordon Central. Maybe the Warriors, well, they're both Warriors. Maybe the homestanding Warriors can pull the upset. I don't know. Like I said, I'm going with LFO Warriors in this one. Chattooga at Armurchie, another Region 7 AA game. Both of these schools have 1 win. In all honesty, in my opinion, both of these schools are kind of on the outside looking in, the top 4 in 7 AA in no particular order, Model Dade, Darlington, Coosa. For one of these to get into the playoffs, they can't lose against them. They got to win 2 or 3. They got to win 3 games. So the loser of this is probably definitely not out of the playoffs, but they have a much harder way to get in. Wow, I am rambling like crazy. Anyway, moving on to Chattooga at Armurchie. I'm going to go with the Chattooga Indians at this one. I think the offense is a little bit better. I think the defense is a little bit better. Matt, what do you think?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the most important thing to look at in this game is the offense. Chattooga, they got a couple of players, the Fosters, like we mentioned to you, and they've got some speed. And Armurchie has still struggled, over the last couple of seasons to get in the end zone and score points. I know they had one game this year where they scored 20 points, but that was against a team that virtually has no defense and gives up that amount of points pretty much or more no matter who they're playing. So I just have more faith in Chattooga's offense at this point in time. But again, like you mentioned, both teams come into it 1-3. You can throw that out the window at this point. You hit the reset button. You try to do the best you can in your region games and hope something good happens as a result of your efforts as things go along. But I think Chattooga's a better team.
I think the secondary part to this I didn't mention. I think Chattooga's schedule they played tougher opponents than Armurchie has as well. I mean, that 1-3 record is tough, but their opponents look a little bit better than some of Armurchie's. Moving on, Cedartown and Fayette County. Fayette County's had a rough run of it this year. Of course, Cedartown got on the right side, got their first win last week. I'm afraid that Fayette County, although their record is not great, they have played some good teams very close. I think Fayette County, especially on the road, is going to be too much for the Bulldogs. I say Cedartown loses.
This one was a hard one for me to pick, and when you look at Fayette County over the last few years, they have had a horrible record.
Yes.
I think last year they only won 1 game. But as you pointed out, when you look at their schedule, they're playing teams like Sandy Creek and Carrollton and some really good teams on their schedule. and some of them, were fairly competitive games. And so when I look at, Fayette County, I think, what have they won? One game this year? I think they beat Stars Mill,
yes,
which is
a
pretty good football team. So this one could be a little bit deceiving. I think a lot of people are going to be quick to circle Cedartown in this game because of what happened last week. I think this is a really competitive game, maybe even goes down to the last possession. And for some reason, I circled Cedartown, but I'm starting to second-guess myself on that one.
Gotcha. And just another note on that, Scott Hendricks, Cedartown's coach, noted last week that, don't be deceived by Fayette County's record. They've played some really good football teams. He knows the Bulldogs have a tough road to hoe this week. Moving on, Norville at Adairsville, a very interesting game because right now this game is still, these two teams are really fighting to be the #2 team in the region, in Region 6 AAA. Norville, undefeated region record. Adairsville, after beating Ringgold a couple weeks ago, undefeated region record. It's at Adairsville. Look, it could have been on the moon or anywhere else. I think Adairsville is probably 3 touchdowns better than Norville. I think you could see a lot of offense in this game, but I think Adairsville is going to get the better hand of it. Adairsville wins.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think this game comes down to which defense can get out there and perform best in this game. Because as you mentioned, both of these teams are pretty sound in terms of the offensive side of the ball. I do agree with you, though. I've seen Adairsville play, several times over the last couple of years. I mentioned Marcus Childress, their quarterback, who's now a senior. He's got experience. He's mobile. He's got weapons in terms of running backs, and he's got an offensive line that can protect them. And it looks like their defense has taken a few steps forward this year. So I think Adairsville's a better team. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't have a high-scoring affair and a really exciting game to watch at Adairsville.
Definitely so. And, of course, the defense against Ringgold 2 weeks ago allowed no points. And that's a stark difference from the Adairsville defense that has allowed most teams to score 2 or 3 or even 4 touchdowns on them over the past couple of years. One last game to talk about. And Calhoun at Ringgold. Look, it's Calhoun. I'm not going to pick against Calhoun in a Region 6 AAA game, but let's make this note real quick. 2 weeks ago, Ringgold was undefeated and ranked #4 in Class AAA before the beatdown Adairsville gave them. The Tigers, if the Tigers could pull the win here, it would throw Region 6 AAA into total disarray. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think the Yellow Jackets are too tough. Calhoun wins, probably going away.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, as you mentioned, knowing that Adairsville shut them out. I mean, Calhoun is a good football team. They've kind of picked up where they left off. They've got that running game going. And, of course, all phases of the game are good for Calhoun. I just don't think that there's any way that Ringgold is going to be able to hang with them. I think Calhoun wins it, maybe even by 20 or 30 points.
Gotcha. That's all our picks for this week. A couple of teams have byes. Obviously, Rome is off this week. Who else is off this week? Tryon is off this week? No, Tryon is. We didn't pick the Tryon game. Crap, I didn't put Tryon on the list. Well, we'll have to pick that. We have to go to the newspaper for that pick. Anyway, we missed one. Basically, Matt, where are y'all going to be on Friday?
Well, we're looking forward to heading over to Dade County with Model.
Gotcha.
We did this game last year, and it was not one that we originally had on the schedule going into this week this year. But, Model's 4-0. This is the first region game of the year for both of these teams. This game had implications to it last year. It could again this year, even though we're, right at the beginning of region play. We're really excited about hitting the road and going over to Dade County for this one. I think it's going to be a spectacular night.
You can hear them on the radio. Of course, the Darlington game will be on the radio as well. We'll be covering all the local games, and of course, come to PrepCentralOnline.com Friday night, live scoring updates from all of our local games. Later in the evening, photos and articles from the games. And of course, next week, Matt and I will break down all the key matchups here on Gridiron Central. For Jackson Witzel, Matt Davis, I'm Jim Allred saying, we'll see you on the sidelines.